In this video, we will understand how to configure a Spring Boot web application from scratch. By the end of this video, you will be able to create a Spring Boot web application on your own, display a home page on accessing this application from browser, add your own Spring controller, and display web pages mapped to different URLs. Open your favorite Java development IDE. I'm using Spring Tool Suite, or popularly known as STS. Go to File, New, Project, select Spring Starter Project. If you can't find it here, then search it here. Double click or select Next. This is the project configuration window. Here you can select project name. I'll name it as Demo App. Type of project, Maven or Gradle. For this example, we will go with Maven project, but you can also select Gradle as per your requirement. Type of executable package for this project. Preferable type for a Spring Boot project is jar, but you can also select var if required. Java version. I will select Java 11. Language is obviously Java, won't touch that. Next comes the group and artifact. Group is a unique ID with which your project will be identified if published. As a best practice, group starts with domain names such as com, org, edu, etc., followed by the company name. But anyways, you can choose whatever you like. Artifact ID is the name of the executable, jar or var, with which you want to distribute your project. If you create it with Maven automatically or Gradle, jar with this name will be created. I will keep it Demo App. It should be in lowercase by convention. Next is the version of the application. We'll make it as 1.0. Description is self-explanatory. We'll change it to demo project for Spring Web MVC. Finally, package is the automatic package that you want to create when this project is created. We'll leave it as shown. Click Next. Here you can choose which Spring modules you want to include in your project. It is not necessary to select here, but doing so will automatically add the corresponding Maven dependencies in pom.xml file. Download them and add them to the class path. Since we are creating a web project, search for web. These are the modules related to Spring Web. We will select Spring Web and Thymeleaf since we will be using this as a template engine. That is, we will use Thymeleaf to create our web pages. You can choose not to select it if you prefer to use some other view template such as a JSP or integrate your Spring Boot app with a front-end framework such as Angular or React. Click Next. Here is a URL from which it will download dependencies as per the selected configuration. Look, it shows all the configured options such as group, artifact ID, etc. and selected Spring modules. Click Finish. Or you can also directly click Finish from the last screen without coming to this window. Look, it is downloading dependencies and creating the project. Done. The project is ready. Open its pom.xml file. Group ID, artifact ID and name are the same as we gave while creating the project. Scroll down. Look at the dependencies. Thymeleaf and Spring Boot Web. These belong to the modules that we chose. The last two dependencies belong to JUnit and are required for writing JUnit tests. Since we are not going to write any unit test cases, we can remove them for now. Now let's look at the source folder. Look, it created the same package as we provided at project creation. A main Java file is also generated with the name of the project and application appended to it. If you look at this Java file, it has Spring Boot application annotation at the top. This annotation is a combination of three annotations: Spring Boot configuration, which indicates that this is a Spring Boot configuration class; enable auto configuration, which means that it will automatically figure out the objects that you will need and create them. This is done on the basis of class path dependencies. Third is component scan, which permits Spring to scan classes for Spring specific annotations. You can also see from the description of this annotation that it is a combination of these three annotations. A class that has Spring Boot application annotation is a main class of the Spring Boot application and should have a main method. In order to run Spring Boot application, Spring application class is used. Run this class. You can run it as a Java application or a Spring Boot application. Spring Boot by default uses Tomcat server. Look at this message. Tomcat started at port 8080. Go to the browser, open localhost :8080. You are seeing this error page since we have not configured what to display when this URL is accessed. But this shows that our Spring Boot web app is running and listening at port 8080. Now let us configure a home page. Home page is a page that is displayed when the root URL is accessed. In this example, we are using Thymeleaf as a front-end technology. Web pages in Thymeleaf are called templates. A template is a file with .html extension. By default, Spring Boot looks for Thymeleaf template at this location: src/main/resources/templates. If you create a file with name index.html at this location, then Spring Boot considers it as homepage by default. So let's create a file in this folder. Right click, new, file, name it as index.html. Click finish. Create a simple heading tag with text learning Spring Boot web app. Save. Stop the application and restart. Go back to the browser, refresh. Look, it displayed the same page that we created. Now to show that it actually uses a file named index.html, let's go back and change the name of index.html to something like myfile.html. Restart the application, back to the browser, refresh. Again the same error page, which means that it actually uses index.html as a default home page and it could not find this file. Let's see how we configure Spring Boot to use our own template file with name other than index.html. For this, we need to create a controller for mapping different URLs. So, create a new class, name it as AppController, apply an @controller annotation to make it a Spring controller. Now create a method with return type as string. The value returned from this method should be the same as the name of template that we want to render. Now map this method to a URL, and for this apply @request mapping annotation over it with its value as a URL for which this method should be called. Since we want to map root URL, its value will be /. If you are using Spring 4, you can also use @get mapping annotation instead of request mapping. See its description. It acts as a shortcut for request mapping for HTTP GET method. If you don't provide a method with request mapping, it is assumed to be GET by default. This annotation was added in Spring 4.3, so we will go with GET mapping. Save, restart the application, back to the browser, refresh. There you go. So it works with our own Thymeleaf template file. In this video, we only covered how to configure Thymeleaf with Spring Boot, but there is a lot more on Thymeleaf. Thymeleaf templates can be used as full-fledged web pages, but this is outside the scope of this video. At this point, you know how to display web pages with Spring Boot. You can create different HTML files, define controller methods mapped to custom URLs, return a string matching the corresponding template file so that these are displayed as web pages when those URLs are accessed. In the next video, I'll show you how to send data from controller back to the template and play with it. Subscribe the channel if you haven't already. Thank you for watching.